Good morning and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green, and today's guest is known by many people in the state, this region, beyond, because he is one of the most passionate people I know in the nonprofit world. And I will simply thank him for joining me today for a lively conversation. My guest is Tim Garvin, President and CEO of the United Way of Central Massachusetts. Welcome, Tim, and thank you for being here.
Vicki, I thank you for inviting me onto the show, even on a Sunday morning. And I look forward to every single one of your listeners, our listeners, having a great time as we start this journey and talk about all that's great in our community together.
Because there is so many things that are great. And that is the problem when I bring you in, because I have so many people that I had met years ago that I'm bringing back since I've been back in the studio, and you're one of them on the top of that list, because you're involved in so many things that we could talk for 3 hours, but we're not. So we have to try and squeeze this in. So you've been in this role for 15 years.
Yep.
Your title and job is immense, and I don't think people understand. You were quoted recently as saying, just in the past year, approximately 70,000 lives, that's 70,000 people in the region, in the area, were touched by programs funded in part by the United Way.
Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? And it gets bigger and it gets better. And what I love about it is it doesn't exhibit the need. It exhibits how much this community of Central Massachusetts and Worcester, the heart of the Commonwealth, care about people. So if I can just bring up one other point that I think helps to accelerate what you just said. A few weeks ago, the Saturday before Mother's Day, maybe a month ago, was the National Stamp Out Hunger, the letter carriers food drive. And we love our union partners, and the letter carriers are amazing. So the Letter Carriers Food Drive, Stamp Out Hunger, in central Massachusetts, we just got the results. 391,741 pounds of non-perishable, unopened, useful food to stock all of our food pantries during the summer months. 391,000 pounds. Now, I was not a math major, but I was recently at a school, and I said, how many pounds are in a ton? Fifth grader, a 10-year-old, said 2,000 pounds. And I'm thinking, darn, we just collected 200,000 tons of food in one day from Central Massachusetts.
Just from the United Way partnering with
the letter of everybody filling up a bag and leaving it by their mailbox. We
so
just
each
promote
individual home. We're talking about the one where the post office, the mail carriers pick up at your house.
Right.
Yeah.
391,000 pounds of food.
So when you talk about how many lives that can affect, you can't.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's huge. And we were talking before the show. You think 70,000? That's more than roughly the population of Framingham.
That's right. We would be, if there were a United Wayville, everybody who was affected by United Way funding, we would be the second largest population community in central Massachusetts after the city of Worcester.
And the city of Worcester is 180,000 people. The United Way covers some 30 communities, so I want to be clear. Worcester's part of that.
Yep.
But it's a huge region.
That's right.
Okay.
And many of our nonprofit partners have their headquarters in Worcester, but they're serving all over. The American Red Cross, Big Brothers Big Sisters, all the camps, the YW, the YM, Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club. We're serving the entire community.
Yeah. And I've had so many people on the show. Accentria you work with, too, and we did a big show on their immigration, on getting fosters for immigration, and the work that they do is amazing.
They're great.
But so just in 2018 to 2019, if my math isn't great either, but I can count, and I looked at the number of programs, and some of them are within the same organizations, but the number of different programs that the United Way of Central Mass was involved in and funded in part in 2018 through 2019, there are 51 different programs.
Yes.
How do you break this down and decide what areas we're going to focus on?
So, and I'll be as quick as I can, and with passion and energy and excitement. We don't do it whimsically. We don't sit, 5 people in a room and do a draft choice. We did a strategic plan, and it was a 9-month process. There was a community charrette. There were small focus groups. We met with donors. We met with community leaders. We met with nonprofit agencies. Then we did a data mining day. How incredibly boring, but it was really important so that what we were hearing we could match with data and see what the greatest needs and where the greatest opportunity for success. And we landed on 4 different totally connected areas. First is safety net, the immediate needs of people who are vulnerable. And safety net funding might last forever. And we break it down into food, shelter, protective services, and emergency services. Then we had the trinity, the combination, the integration of the three building blocks of a successful life. My wife and I are blessed. We have 3 kids. And the first thing we want our kids to be is happy. The United Way is not going to touch that. But the next 3 things, and it's not that we're strategic, same as you and your kids or your parents for you, we want our kids to get a great education, we want them to be healthy, and we want them to have stability of family and of home and of finances. Our 3 creating community change, the building blocks for a successful life, education and youth development, health to make sure people have access, but we also focus on issues that are topical, obesity, opioids, and then family financial stability. How do we make sure that people aren't worried, where are they going to sleep, where are they going to eat? Those 3 things combined. And then we put out a request for proposal, open and competitive, as long as they're a 501c3, a nonprofit in this community with leadership in this community.
And they can go
apply.
on the website to find all the
Absolutely.
applications.
And we have dates and timelines and that. And then they apply and we offer technical assistance. We won't write a grant for anybody. Then we have peer reviewers. From peer reviewers, they are ranked without any money. Then it comes to a community impact committee made up of community leaders, of nonprofit leaders, of at-large members and board members.
This is every year?
Every other year.
Oh, okay.
And then eventually it goes to the board, and the board has 6 weeks to discern, to ask more questions, and then to figure out a funding slate that they vote on, and then we announce who's getting our funds. And what I love about it is how oftentimes those nonprofits and those separate partners and those programs start working together. 7 years ago, 7 youth development agencies, the YM, the YW, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., Friendly House, U Inc., and the Worcester Youth Center came together and said, rather than all of us applying and competing with each other, if we went in together, Vicki, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. This is collaboration at its absolute
But how do
best.
they do it for? Well, this is another. We can talk about this later.
That-
Doing it
we'll
for their
do a whole
books is
separate show on that.
Yeah, I mean, doing it for their books, and I've had almost everybody you've named in here.
Yep.
And the thing is it's tough now too because people, it seems, no matter how good the economy and strong the economy is, there's always that fight when people want to give money. I have it myself. I say I have a limited amount.
Right.
Where do I want to give it? I don't give gifts to my parents anymore because they don't want gifts. They say we don't need anything. Please donate. And they have the causes.
I want to
that
meet
they-
your parents, so they say, United Way of Central Massachusetts.
Yeah. Well, you know, usually they go for the same organizations, and they are in the state. But you know, so I will ask them that. But how, you know, when people are trying to discern where to put their dollars, the United Way's got a brand, American Cross got a brand. But when you say these groups come together, it makes more sense because
It sure does.
because then people can give money to a larger. The United Way can then distribute to a larger amount of people.
Right, and I'm going to tell a story, and I apologize about it. 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was a gentleman named Robert Smith. He was the graduation speaker at Morehouse College in Atlanta. And it
Oh,
became,
oh, yeah, I know what
everybody
you're
heard
saying.
about Robert Smith,
Yeah.
whether they remember his name or not. In the midst of his speech, spontaneously, he announced he was wiping out all of the debt of the 396 graduates. Right. So they were all finishing with their diploma with no college loans. Unbelievable. And the best term I heard about it was generosity with muscle. That cost him about $40 million, and I revere him. That made a difference and will make a difference for 40 years in the lives of those kids, the people they touch, their families, forever.
And we're not talking about people that have millions of dollars either.
Right. Now, he does. But the next day, we were doing a campaign kickoff with one of our agencies who also run campaigns for us. And I talked about it, and I said, I'm not expecting any of you can make a $40 million gift. But I will say on the air right now, if anybody wishes to, we will be glad to accept it, and I will say exactly how we can use it. But when you pool your money together, that person who can give $1 a week, $52 a year, $2 a week, $104, $5 a week, $260 a year. When we add all of that together, it becomes impact buying dollars. Our United Way raises about $5 million from
A year.
donors annually. If you give $52 a year to any of those great organizations, that's great. It's not going to have the same generosity with muscle as a grant for $87,000.
In other words, if you give $25 to United Way,
It's going to be multiplied by thousands and thousands of people so that all of a sudden it's going to have great impact.
right. So we broke down the areas. And then the one thing you didn't mention was in addition to those areas, and it's again, it overlaps, is the United Way of Central Mass has a women's initiative.
Oh, I love our women's initiative.
So do I.
16
But
years.
you explain about it.
Started by two phenomenal women, Meredith Wesby and Lois Green, God rest her soul. And they came to the United Way and basically, simply, they said, we understand women give in different ways than men. We want to start a women's giving circle that we're going to call the Women's Initiative. We're going to research issues and decide on one issue, and we're going to raise money and pool it, exactly as I was talking about, and focus on that issue. The issue they came up with when they started was reducing violence in the lives of adolescent girls. I would
And this
now
was how
say
many years ago?
16 years ago. It's expanded to improving the health, not just of girls, but of those that are in touch with. One of the coolest things we do, and I know that's a really old-fashioned word, coolest, but it is.
Not to me.
Twice a year, we run for middle school girls Dollar Scholars, financial literacy programs. And we bring in women, we recruit women who are
From banks, from
who are leaders, who are mentors, and we do it on a college campus. And so 4 things happen. The adolescent girls, the teen girls, learn about financial literacy. Like, if I don't have money in my checkbook, does that mean I can still write checks? No! They see women who are in leadership roles who they can say, I want to grow up to be like that person. They get on a college campus, and oftentimes it's the first time they've ever been on a college campus. But perhaps greatest, and we've never done a longitudinal study, we know that the number one reason anybody stays in an abusive relationship is because of lack of financial independence. We believe if young girls can learn financial literacy, they will never put themselves at risk by being in an abusive relationship. That's great. That is impact. That changes lives for the rest of their lives.
and if nothing else, it makes them think.
Exactly.
Because even if they
right.
don't have the money, they can go and say, remember I spent those 4 days at that, and I listened to so-and-so, and this person really touched me, because you never know who's going to touch somebody. But my question is this, to pull those things off, you don't just do this one weekend event. Money that you have that goes to multitudes of organizations. You mentioned, not just in Worcester, again, I want to focus
Central
on the fact
Massachusetts.
there's 30 communities here that we're talking about, and 70,000 lives are being touched in all sorts of things, from immigration, from public health, to specific women's initiatives, to mentor programs. But when I get confused is like when you said pooling makes sense, because you've got Girls Inc. and let's say the Boys and Girls Club. And let's say it's the summer now, which is
Right.
something I want to talk about anyway.
Yep.
You've got kids that are out of school, and not just in urban areas, but other communities too, that are usually tends to hit low income and urban, where they're not quite getting the meals they're going to get at school. You know, how are they? Is there food insecurity over the summer? What are they going to do with
Vicky,
their
you're totally
time?
right. So-
what are they going to do with their time every day?
So-
what if they can't afford camp?
I am one of the luckiest people in the world, and I recognize that. I came from a two-parent family with a brother and a grandmother, and our home was filled with love and care and all the things that we would want for any child. And what I learned when I came to Worcester and in working in the nonprofit sector and being in the Peace Corps is that not every child had the same upbringing and the same background I did. And I was fortunate. I always thought summer was the greatest season. Summer was when school was out, and I liked school, but all of a sudden we could go to the library and choose any book we wanted.
You went to the library in your summer?
Yes, we did. I read the autobiography of Jim Thorpe. I read the autobiography of Jackie Robinson. They were all the sports stars I wanted to be like. My dad would come home, and we would grill out every other night. We had corn on the cob and watermelon. So I was getting fruits and vegetables, but they were the fun foods because you ate them with your hands. Once a year, during the summer, my brother and I would pull out our sleeping bags and we'd sleep out under the stars. We'd go on family vacations. We'd go to the beach. It was great. When I came here, the big but is I learned that some kids, the best 9 months of the year are when they're in school. Mm-hmm. In school, they get free and reduced breakfast and lunch. Their brains are stimulated. They have recess and gym, so they're physically active. They have adult role models, and they have friends. They have access to books. And then summer comes, and maybe one or maybe all 6 of those things we take for granted is stopped. And if it's a single parent who might say, don't answer the phone, don't answer the door, turn on the TV, I'll be home at 6 o'clock, and we'll figure out what we're going to have for dinner. So our United Way, in working in partnership with all these youth development agencies, we want to create a great summer for every child. Working with UMass, the hospital system. 3 years ago, we started Summer Strong. How do we create more opportunities, camperships rather than scholarships, so kids can go to camp for free. And we've done that.
So if there's people listening, just to stop you for a minute, and they're in that situation, they haven't enrolled their kids in camp or coming up on camp, when should they start thinking about it? And
Oh my
where
gosh,
do they
they should
go
start right now, and they should
and where
call.
do they go?
They should call the YM, the YW, Girls
YMCA.
Inc., YMCA, YWCA, Girls Inc., Worcester Youth Center.
Just call them.
Call them and say, do you still have openings? And do you have any scholarship available? And each might have its own scholarship form. Usually it's a one-page form, and you have to see the front of the tax return, the W-4. And
So just one sheet. You don't need like millions of them.
but I don't know for each one.
Right, they're different. Yeah.
We, with UMass Memorial, have created a pool that goes to those 7 agencies so they have additional scholarship money. But that's not all. So we also understand that those are probably going to be for the elementary school kids. For the tweens, we have a program that we call Worcester Cares that's a volunteer program. And we work with all of the nonprofits, some who are our partners, some who aren't. So the kids, 2 days a week, and they can sign up once or they can sign up twice a week for all 8 weeks of the summer, they can go out and get volunteer opportunities. For some kids, they don't want to do it, but it's really healthy work. For other kids, they have to tick off and do 50 hours of volunteerism to be able to graduate from high school. We can help. What we found is that every child who gets engaged in volunteer activities wants to do it more and more and more.
Isn't that true about it, even an adult?
Absolutely.
Like there's some study that just came out about, and you might have posted it.
I did
about
yesterday or last week.
Yeah, I forget where it was from. But
Volunteering is good for your mental health.
yes. And I
And
believe
it creates community connections. And it fills time, and it makes you feel good about yourself in addition to doing good for others. So that's the second group. The third group are those teenagers, the 14 to 18-year-olds. With that collaboration, what we call Youth Connect, 5 nights a week for the summer, our youth development agencies, YMCA, YWCA, Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc., Worcester Youth Center, Friendly House, are open so the kids can get a healthy dinner, so they can be physically active, so they can be recreational opportunities. Some people will say that's great because it's keeping teens off the streets, and that might be true. But more importantly, what it's doing is it's creating role models. It's building peer relationships. It's breaking down neighborhood boundaries, and it's getting kids to try things.
And you don't just have to live in Worcester, right?
Right. And when I say kids try things, the Worcester Youth Center has an amazing studio similar to this one where kids can make mixtapes or beats or write their own hip-hop songs. Well, I don't know how to do that, but they do at the Worcester Youth Center. So if you want to try that out.
Do you have to be from Worcester?
I don't know. For Youth Connect, you have to be a Worcester kid from one of the neighborhoods.
Okay.
At the Boys and Girls Club, they have an award-winning dance troupe in the zone, and they have probably the most, I would say, I'll be on the record and say it, the best boxing program. Now, boxing isn't about knocking someone out. Eventually, if you get the Golden Gloves or the Olympics, it is. But boxing is about physical activity. It's about perseverance. It's about practice. It's about learning skills. It's about learning what your strengths and your weaknesses are. It's a great program. And the way the Boys and Girls Club does it, it's about human development. It's not about boxing.
And that's about any, to be honest, in my opinion, any sport.
And
any
that's
team
the way they
sport.
should be.
Yeah. And actually, you bring up boxing. We did a show on Parkinson's, and there's a whole boxing thing.
Yes, there is.
With the Dopafit, which is in West Boylston Street, and doing other places. Excuse me. Okay, so we talked about some of the programming. So you've been with the organization since 2006.
Yes.
Obviously, the area has changed in these 30 communities.
Yes.
Some ways for the better, some
Absolutely.
some not so better. So what are some of the changes you've personally seen from your lens through the United Way, from a philanthropic lens of kids being served in certain areas and what we still need to do and where people can help?
I'm going to give some pluses and minuses. The pluses, I think more and more people are drawn to wanting to be philanthropic and be involved in volunteerism, and they don't always know how to do it. And I would say, come to our website and go onto our volunteer center, because any nonprofit can post any volunteer opportunities they have, unaffiliated with the United Way. It's a clearinghouse of volunteer opportunities.
So anybody who wants to volunteer that may be listening, say it's a mom, and
Yes.
their kids are at camp,
And they
wanna
live in
volunteer.
West Boylston and they want to volunteer, and if there are opportunities in West Boylston, they can go onto our website, find the volunteer section of our website, and see any opportunities that exist. So that's really good. Changes. 13 years ago, we were talking about an opiate crisis. We are.
We weren't.
We were not 13 years ago. We are now. And it's a real crisis. And it's awful and it's tragic, but I would say there's one good thing. finally, I believe, started not criminalizing the addict. There can be criminal behavior and criminal activity, but the addict, it's a disease, and we need to help every addict. And that's a good thing. And I think we're getting there. I am so proud of, in Worcester and then all of our surrounding communities, what the Worcester Department of Public Health, Dr. Maddie Castile, has done, where she is going out with her team to train anyone and everyone in how to look for what are the signs and how to administer Narcan.
Narcan, yeah.
We
I talked to
actually-
State Rep O'Day. Who,
Right.
yeah.
And State Rep
Recovering
O'Day is
addict.
one of my bosses. He's on our United Way board. And
We love him.
we do. Social worker by trade, legislator by day.
And recover. He's in recovery, and he talked all
He's a
about it.
fabulous human being. Another change, the economy is thriving right now. And it's really cool, and our unemployment rate is great. But we do see the divide getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're worried about that the people who are on the margins, who are on the bottom edge, are moving farther and farther away. And for them to get involved,
I mean, they're making less and less.
less and less and less. Friends of mine, me, I don't want to talk about a minimum wage. I want to talk about a living wage. What do you need to be able to live in this community? And not live on the margin where you're just eking by and making that terrible choice of, do I pay for my rent or do I go out and buy food? Or even worse, what about if there's a medical condition in my family? Do I pay for food or do I pay for insulin or a cancer drug or a Parkinson's or I'm on a special diet because I've got...
So do you think these issues have gotten worse?
I do. I think
So
we've
access to
become more
care is
aware.
worse. It's harder for many people.
Yes.
Even in Massachusetts, which is a wonderful state. And
The
I
best
believe we've
state
done health
in the
care with,
country.
we're the only ones with Mass Health. We started, Governor Romney and his predecessors started doing this, what ended up being, and I have a friend who was involved in forming the Mass Health Connector. And, it's our Medicaid, but it's a very different program until President Obama started to take a look at what we were doing here. And again, I know it's controversial, but it does allow for more people to be covered. And I have
Yes,
my own...
and that's a great thing.
I have my own problems with it too, but it does allow more people to be covered, bottom line, for basic services that they would need, or a hospitalization, whatever. In a lot of states, if I move
Now-
out of state, I can't do that.
I am not the statistician. I am not the PhD in research. But it is not lost on me, and it might be totally coincidental. When more people have health coverage, when they're healthier, the economy is stronger. And it's an almost ironclad equation that, was it any surprise that the first state in the nation that had universal health coverage under Governor Mitt Romney had the fastest growing economy in the nation at the time that he was the governor?
Of course, that you would be Massachusetts.
And it might just be totally coincidental, but I believe when people are healthy, they actually they're better employees and they work more. And that actually helps our economy.
But then you talk about health, and you have people that are perfectly healthy that can't make a living wage. And I like that. I was going to bring up the minimum wage because other states like Connecticut, my daughter is working there this summer, and their minimum wage is lower than ours, but their governor just signed last week a bill to do the same thing that we're doing. However, the downside to increasing minimum wage is companies having an impact on their bottom line and having to reduce the workforce. So I don't know if you're seeing that, but is that part of, I'm thinking maybe that's part of the divide. Because while the intention is very good, and I love the fact that the minimum wage goes up for people that make it, but does that mean that their access to jobs, or they'll get a job for minimum wage, but they'll be hired at so less, not full time, so they can't get benefits? Is it pay one for
I
the
wish
other?
it were that easy. I think there are so many facets of what build the economy and exactly, are we pricing ourselves out if we have a minimum wage so that overseas work and we're going to farm out all of our work? And yet at the same time, I think of, what are the great things that America has? We have a can-do spirit that always says yes. We have brain power. I once heard about Massachusetts. We don't manufacture anything except for the best ideas in the world. And I agree with that. We have the most fertile lands in the world that can produce food.
In the country, or are you talking about
in the world.
No. But you mean in Massachusetts?
But
we have
in
them?
Massachusetts, but I'm talking about our country
Okay.
in general. But the economy is so multifaceted. And then what about tariffs, and what about trade, and what about trade wars, and where should things be produced? And how does that help everyone? And that's, I guess, what we're trying to do at the United Way. And we're not economists, and we're not trying to be involved, but we recognize when we're taking care of people, those 71,000 people, that there is actually a benefit to the economy. It is, in fact, economic development. When people have good housing, when they're having access to good jobs because of a great education, when they have youth development and opportunities for the summer, when they eat 3 meals every day, they're actually going to be good employees. And that's what we want to get to.
So we need good employees and we need happy employees and we need people to stay employed and we need people to be able to be hired at such a time, have access to benefits in some way. I mean, it used to be that if you worked X amount, I think it still is, if you work over 32 hours, you have to be given, I think, federal benefits. But can companies get around that? Because they're going to say, especially, that's what I think the argument is about minimum wage by some of maybe the businesses and the industries is, well, this is now I'm going to have to do more with less people because I can't afford the benefits because healthcare's costs are increasing dramatically.
So, here's the interesting thing. And again,
I don't want to be a downer. I'm trying to.
No, but it would
advocate.
be great for you to have a panel of economists and of people that looked at the last 10 years or 15 years of business practices. And again, I understand that I'm in a sliver of our country and I see the good rather than anything else. But when I see those companies that increase benefits, when they increase so they don't have a minimum wage, when they pay for volunteerism, they have lower turnover, they have higher productivity, and their bottom line, some people call it a triple bottom line, is actually strong. They're a community provider, they're doing great financially, and they're able to increase their workforce. Now, I can't give you the names, but I can tell you the companies that run the best United Way campaigns are those companies that take care of their employees the best.
And I'm not going to name any, but there are quite a few. If you go on the United Way website,
Right.
You'll see some of the same names over and over again. Well, I can name a few. There's like, well, I don't want to because you have so many. I don't want to leave
amazing,
anybody
right.
out. I don't want to leave anybody out. But yeah, and that happens like how many chapters of the United Way are across
There
the
are
country?
1,200 distinct, separate United Ways in the United States.
1,200 chapters.
1,200. We're in 42 countries around the world. The United Way worldwide that we are all part of, but we're all separate. So I report to a board of directors that is a local board of directors. We have our own separate 501c3. But United Way worldwide is still the largest nonprofit in the world, $4.7 billion.
Wow.
And our president, Brian Gallagher, goes to the G8 summit in Gstaad, and he's met with the Pope, and he meets with world leaders.
And so the United Way, the bottom line is the money you're in Central Mass, $5 million, all in donations. We went over at the beginning of the show.
Invested here in
the
central
region.
Massachusetts.
Yeah. And Worcester and beyond.
Yes.
And again, these are for everything that come under those things of health, education, and what was the third one?
Safety net and family and financial stability.
And financial stability. Okay. So what is there anything else coming up? You talked about the summer program. Is there anything coming up early fall, like end of the summer, early fall that you
absolutely.
wanted to talk about?
So some people, 20 years ago, there used to be cycles to the United Way. And I now think my job is like reading the want ads, and I know those don't exist anymore, and taking all the jobs because it's always busy. So on September 12th, it will be our 26th annual Day of Caring. We will have 1,500 volunteers.
September 12th.
September 12th. And then we also have our Women's Initiative signature event, which is all focused on raising money for the programs for adolescent girls. And usually what we've had in the past is we have a big event at a big place, and we have a great speaker, and we have a young woman who's affected by the funding give her own personal story. And it's always heartfelt, and it might be anecdotal, but it's representative of all the girls that are whose lives are being touched and improved.
Right. And I think that, I know for me, it was shocking when I saw the number of 70,000 lives. The fact that it's all donations and it's $5 million you're working with, and that you take it very seriously of all the organizations and all the people that you touch. It's not just girls. It's not just kids. It might be immigrant ESL. It might be, like we talked about, hurricane victims. It might be public health. It's amazing. And you had just had your 99th annual celebration, so
Yes,
you're
we
going
did.
into your 100th anniversary. So next year is going to be a banner year for the United Way of
Fireworks.
Central Mass. And so if anyone needs information, we will put the website on our station website, but it's easy. It's United Way CM, as in Central Mass, United Way CM, all one word, .org. Very easy. And it's very easy to navigate. I've done it. So I wanted to end the show with a quote from, happens to be the Worcester City Manager, even though I think it goes for all 30 communities that you that you represent. City Manager Ed Augustus was quoted as saying, and it was right around the time of your 99th, I think it was last month, quote, whether it's youth literacy, flu vaccines, or assistance for hurricane evacuees from Puerto Rico, the city can always count on the organization, the United Way, when it needs a partner. So that must make you feel pretty good.
That was one of the nicest. I wanted to have that quote framed and take it home to my family so that when my kids get upset with me, I say, see, somebody likes me. But it's not like, it's about doing the work. And
I think a lot of people thank you, I think is what it is. And again, if you want to volunteer, donate. I've done it. I've looked at it. Go to the website, unitedwaycm.org. Tim Garvin, President and CEO of the United Way of Central Mass, the man who manages to squeeze 30 hours into a 24-hour day. Thank you so much for stopping by this Sunday morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us on. Thank you.
All right. So, again, thank you for the dedication and hope you stick around for another 15 years. All right. That's Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Have a wonderful day.